Okay, so this then goes along with the worksheet I gave you in class. And you'll notice it just has these boxes. So as we look at the different achievements, remember, look at through things and write things, the crucial ideas. You don't have to write everything, but enough to kind of get a sense of some of the remarkable achievements of the Islamic empires. And a lot of their faith, right, motivated them to, to become better Muslims and to practice their faith, especially as it spread beyond Mecca. And so that led them to make some great advancements in math and science. So let's take a look at some of these achievements. And so we'll start with medicine. And I thought this was pretty cool. As we mentioned, in accordance with religious belief, to live healthy lives and to take care of themselves, also to keep rulers healthy. They developed a pretty big body of medical knowledge. The most famous and well known is Al-Razi. I think your book, he also is known by, I think, a Latin name in Europe, but he wrote medical books that will eventually be translated in many languages. I believe, and I forgot to cite my image here, this might be the Hippocratic Oath in Arabic. So there was some sharing of culture, too, but further advancing off some of Greek ideas. And so I thought this was kind of interesting. Some of these early medical instruments was pretty sophisticated. This idea of hospitals and organizing them into different wards, like like we do today. You go to one section for heart surgery and another to give birth. And so these were ideas developed by Al-Razi, so it will influence medicine forever. And this is a quote I thought was interesting from an English historian talking about the importance of Al-Razi. Okay, so some cool pictures I found on this from this article, and I thought this was so interesting. You can see them doing various surgical practices, working with the eyes, doing, this almost looks like a modern surgical operating theater today. And so to show how advanced their medical advancements were. Okay, so astronomy is another field of advancement. Some of this might be repeating from what we saw in the video in class. And so a lot of these advancements were driven by a desire to help people fulfill the pillars of Islam of fasting and prayer. Remember, as the Islamic Empire spread, to figure out where is Mecca. It's a lunar calendar, so when is the time of Ramadan? And they perfect the astrolabe, which was from the Hellenistic period. And they charted the eclipses and the Earth's rotation. Again, here's a picture of Ottoman astronomers in Istanbul. But again, remember, the Islamic calendar is a lunar calendar. And they were also using these techniques to make some of the most accurate maps of the world at the time. There you have it. So we're going to talk about some art and architecture and then look at some pictures. So we've talked about this, I think, before. Remember that they didn't have human representation of God or of figures or Muhammad, in their art. And so we'll see that Arabic calligraphy becomes the design script, passages from the Quran geometric designs to decorate their mosques. And we've seen already, I think, pictures of the Dome of the Rock Mosque in Jerusalem. And then some advancements are water wheels to power mills to grind corn and wheat and other things. And then windmills, kind of early windmills that are kind of interesting. And I'm going to highlight this because randomly, I think it was last year, this was on the SOL, and I think it threw a few students. So if you see something like this, know that it's the Islamic windmills. Okay, so famous Islamic architecture, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, remember, built under the Umayyads. So you can see Arabic, right, as the design verses from the Quran, but then geometric patterns, right, to make it beautiful. But what I love about mosques is kind of the simplicity and the elegance of their designs. And this is in Cordoba, Spain, and we'll see this in our video in class, but known for the techniques of the arches, right, from the Romans, but you can see all of them together, and then the stripe is very noticeable. Like, say, if you see it on a test, you'll know it's the mosque in Cordoba, Spain. And this is also then in Islamic Spain, the Alhambra. And I mean, just take a moment, right, and take a look take all that intricate geometric patterns and like the vegetative things like flowers. So you can see the Arabic, but you can see kind of the flower designs. And anyway, so this was a castle and a fortress in Granada up until the 14th century. It's pretty awesome. And so here are some other examples of using the language of Arabic or the lettering in calligraphy, different forms of it, but then geometric patterns as their design. You can see using the calligraphy here in the shapes, or I mean in the animal. So also literature, right? Especially under the Abbasid dynasty. We've talked a lot about the importance of poetry and storytelling in the Bedouin traditions, and that is continual. One of the most famous passages, or works of literature is 1001 Arabian Nights. Some of us, we may have already seen a movie version of this, but different stories like Aladdin, and the genie, and magic carpet rides, and all kinds of things are coming from this tale. One of the most famous poets of this era is Rumi, who's a Sufi poet, and we'll look at some of his poetry in a second. And Omar Khayyam, who wrote another famous poem or verses called the Rubaiyat, which your book talked about being translated into English in the probably 1800s, became very popular. And of course the Quran, right, will be their number one source of material, as we looked at their using verses to decorate their buildings. So, take a moment and read a little bit from Rumi. And we'll discuss this in class. What is the message here? Reading this little excerpt, how does it help us understand this time period? Kind of like this one. And then here is from the Rubaiyat. This is translated by the famous English translator. But again, so each little quatrain, right, of verses. So, take a moment and enjoy. Again, how does this compare to Rumi? Keep in mind, Rumi is a Sufi mystic, and I think that mystical aspect of it is kind of clear, and so you can compare it here to, these quatrains. Okay, so knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge becomes extremely important in all the Islamic empires. As you can see here, some of the oldest universities, right, will be created under the Dar al-Islam. We'll see in the video, right, that they've collected and translated ancient texts. Here, I like this painting of students of Aristotle, right? Here's the Arabic. And this important battle, right, between the Islamic Empire and China, where they learn how to make paper, and that will just transform the Islamic world, and they'll build these huge libraries, right, and eventually bequeath to the Europeans all these Greek and Roman texts. And here's one of the oldest Islamic universities in Cairo, or at least the oldest one I could find in pictures. And of course, you know, my least favorite subject of math, but apparently it's important. And the Muslims were very good, right, in developing mathematics, especially my personal nemesis, algebra, right? And so here's the Arabic numeral system, right? They'll take from the from India, right, and further develop this system. And here's, I just Googled algebra. This came up. It looks like a different language to me, but maybe you guys know what it means. Here is one of the oldest texts from this mathematician here. And then part of, as we've been talking a lot about, right, the importance of trade and huge trade networks, right, connecting various parts of the globe. And so finance, keeping track of that, banking, credit, right, also increases the development and advancement of math in the Islamic world. Okay, so there you have it. Hopefully you've just jotted down the basic facts in each area of achievements to give you a sense of just the amazing contributions of the Islamic civilization to human knowledge and understanding.